All right, we're getting started, and just want to welcome everybody to. I don't even have a title for what I'm doing here. I'm gonna have to make one up, but I just want to welcome everybody to Story Time. This is Story Time, and today this is Story Time with Emcie Aleman. And for those of you that are not familiar with who he is, MC is the president of InVida Latino, and we'll get into, I'm sure, some of that story. But he's just a guy. He's just a guy like kind of like me. His hair's not quite as cool, but he's a little younger, so it's not as gray. But no, so we're gonna learn all about MC. MC, welcome. Appreciate you taking time to be here.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Have a good one. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So, as I mentioned, before we started recording, you and I have known each other for a little while, but haven't really had an opportunity to get to know each other. And so there's a lot I'm excited about this opportunity because there's a lot that I don't know about you. And so I'm as looking forward to hearing your story probably as much as anybody that's going to be watching this. So if you would take us back to the beginning, because I know that you actually didn't even grow up here in well, I'm in California, but you didn't grow up in San Antonio. You didn't even grow up in the USA mainland. So kind of share a little bit of your story as far as where you're from, where you grew up, and tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, well, I'm full name Emcie Aleman Martinez. Born and raised in Puerto Rico. Lived there all my life until the age of 26. A little bit after the recession, I was forced to do a career change. I was in medical supplies back then. I was part of the National Guard. I was serving in the Army as a National Guard Reserve. At that moment, things were really rough, and I decided to switch to active duty. Get to Texas in around 2010, moved from Puerto Rico to El Paso, Texas. And that's where I met the love of my life, Karen Aleman. She's the real boss, guys. I got the titles, but she's the one. Since then, what can I tell you? Serving the Army proudly, became a real die-hard patriot. They served this country with pride across the seas, Afghanistan, Iraq, name it. In my last deployment in Afghanistan, suffered an injury to a few explosions, lost some soldiers in the process. It got to the point where, well, to give a name to it, the Army was like, hey, we cannot use you anymore. Which is fine. I mean, we have to be medically, mentally, physically fit to serve this country, and I understood that. Pretty much become a civilian overnight. At that point, I was no more qualified than any other person to just do what I knew, which was be a police officer, law enforcement in the Army. But I didn't want that in my life. I was done officially after experiencing loss firsthand and going through those challenges that you have to overcome after, going through the side effects of war. It was time to do something new. And funny thing is, well, I don't have a high grade education. I don't have any fancy trainings outside of what I knew in the Army, and became a civilian without a profession, a career, a job. Applied to every job known to man, trying to somehow, some way get a job that pays enough to cover the bills with the benefits I used to have in the Army. Nothing really was available to me, obviously, because I didn't have that education. I didn't have that experience that is required to do something like that. And the thousands of jobs that I applied to, Craigslist, Indeed, or whatever, all of them, somebody called me from a company in El Paso. It was in the financial sector. At that point, I have accepted a job opportunity with Mercedes-Benz as a car salesman. That's the easiest thing to do, right? Selling cars to soldiers after you're being a veteran. And in Mercedes-Benz, I guess I was gonna do right, fine. But keep in mind, I just accepted that offer. And this guy calls me and say, "Hey, man, I would like to meet with you. I'm very impressed with your resume." I don't know. Obviously, it was just a tactic to get my attention. I mean, let's be honest. But he found a way to get me in front of him. And I remember like it was yesterday. He shared the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. And I asked him for, "Hey, just tell me what an average agent makes." And he was like, "Well, I don't want to talk about that because everybody's different." And I, obviously being in this industry now, I understand what he was saying. But to me, I was so sure in who I was as an individual and in my work ethic that I was like, "Listen, man, the reason I'm asking you for the average is because I'm better than average." I always been very confident about myself just because of my work ethic. Um, Long story short, he shared the number of an average agent. And that was enough to pay the bill. So I was like, you know what, let's go for it. And I went all in, burned every bridge that was available. At that point, I remember calling the Mercedes-Benz manager and pretty much telling him, "Hey, I know that I just did my drug test and passed everything, and I'm supposed to start 2 days from now, but I found something better." And it was one of those things where it was very weird because the person who got me into the Mercedes-Benz dealership was a friend, and I just felt like, wow, I just did something wrong with that friend, but it wasn't the right thing for me. Fast forward today, I'm still father of four.
Now,
uh,
hold on. Before we fast forward, I want to stop you right there
Go ahead.
because you've said a couple things that have that have piqued my interest. I want to dig in a little bit deeper on some of what you just said. First of all, I want you to kind of think back. Do you remember why did you decide that you wanted to get into financial services versus the car dealership? You said that it just didn't seem like a good fit, but do you remember kind of what more went into that? I mean, it was your friend that invited you to work at Mercedes. What went into that?
Well, at the very beginning, like most people, it was the money. I never seen an industry that compensate the way financial services do, um, without the degrees and the fancy stuff. And to me, it was a matter of, I was gonna hustle either way, right? Or Mercedes Benz or life insurance or anything. I mean, I was gonna work hard. So the numbers make sense. So it was a financial thing at first. And then of course, as soon as you dive in and start seeing the different levels of what this industry can do, Jason, you start changing your perspective. But I'll be honest with you, man, it was straight up money at the beginning. It was just, you're telling me I can get paid this kind of money for serving someone with these services that are necessary? Sign me up. It was about the money. It was nothing else at that point.
Okay, hey, and that's okay. I mean, a lot of people when they're looking for a job, that's one of the key things, right? Is how do I get paid? How do I make money? But
Mhm.
another thing that you said was that you said that you burnt every bridge, like you went all in. Can you expand just a little bit on your mindset there with that? Because I thought that was interesting.
I'm going to be very fair, though. There wasn't a lot of bridges to burn. Just to be fair,
Okay,
it's not like I
fair
had
enough.
like a million opportunities laying in front of me, but I did burn the few that were left behind. My dad used to tell me, if you have a plan B, it's because plan A suck. It's just very simple. Um, and at that moment, I guess I could have done both. I could have done Mercedes Benz and as a more sure thing, because anybody can sell a car, I believe, and then do this on the side. But I'm also a believer that jack of all trade, master of none. So it was one of those things where, I told this guy, first of all, that I was an average and ordinary, that I was better than average. And if my attention span would have been divided in multiple things, well, even as good as I thought I was, um, I would have been an average performer. So that was the reason why I burned the bridges. Was I understood the numbers, understood the concept, understood the system, the services I provide, and the people I was talking to. And it was a matter of, hey, man, if you give your all to this and you do what you're supposed to, you'll be fine. And obviously, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Now, you didn't have any experience
Oh,
in this. So
absolutely not. I said at
what,
the beginning, Jason, I was a numbers guy, but it's because I had a phone or a computer in front of me most of the time. Uh, the truth is that I cannot add 2 + 2. That's the reality of this deal. I have no clue what I was doing, except that I understood the concept and the system. So it was all about the concepts and the system. It was not so much about the details, the intricate details of everything I had to do at that moment. It was more like, hey, this is common sense. This makes perfect sense on top of everything. Um, let's just talk to people. But no experience at all.
and here's my question. What what made you think, and not just think, but believe, because you believed it, that you could do it and be successful? Where did you get that belief? Where did that belief come from?
Wow. Well, first of all, like I said at the beginning, I knew I was gonna work hard, and work ethic is over. Most people think it's overrated. Most people say he's who you know and what you know and all that stuff, right? I'll be honest with you guys, the work ethic. I knew that I was gonna work hard, that I was gonna figure it out, that I was gonna do whatever it takes within my power to be able to do it. Um, so it came down to the fact that I knew how to work hard. That was just a simple answer. I mean, I wish I could tell you there was something fancy about it. It was the fact that it was the right thing to do. It was a service that I thought I believed in, uh, mainly because I experienced loss in my life where those services were not met or provided to my family members at any given time. And I saw the aftermath of everything that created. So it was easy to relate to the concepts and the system. It was it was fairly easy. And I just figured out if I talk to enough people, somebody will understand it and say yes. So that was it. There was nothing. I wish I could tell you there was something else, but not really.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Well, and finally, like I said, from there, decided to stay in the industry. Little by little, start finding out more about the system I was part of. And I started realizing it was, although even when I joined this business for the money, but I've never done anything when it's 100% because of the money. Because I think that's a race that never stops. If you always look for more money, there will always be a race to be. So obviously, I wanted to live well, be better. But to be fair, it wasn't about the money 100%. And I was in a company that sadly, all the services that we provided, the way obviously the services were right and the products were good, but it was the way they made us feel was 1000% about the money. It was about getting paid, $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month. Ain't complaining about it, just to be fair. But to be very honest with you, it became at some point the purpose of what I was doing changed to the money. And when you just pursue money, man, that just becomes a never-ending race. I start sacrificing time with my family, start sacrificing time with myself. I mean, it's just as simple. And it got to a point where, as good as the money was, it was unbearable to me. Leave the company I was working with as one of the top producers. In fact, the moment I announced my separation from that company, they offered me everything they could think of to get me to transition to another office, become a bigger ranking official with the company. But it was still the chase for money, and it just didn't feel right. I was afraid that I was gonna get all the money in the world, but I was gonna lose everything else that really means something to me. Separate from that company, And that's when my pursuit for independence starts.
Now,
Uh,
you were married at this point, right? You mentioned earlier that you met.
Absolutely, yes. I married my wife. I say hello to her, and I probably proposed 2 weeks after. Not really, but that's how it felt, because from the moment I say hello to her, I was in. I was in. I was like, when you know. And I think that's what it comes down to, even with this process with InVida, is through that journey between that company A and InVida, I kiss a lot of companies, to put it in the right perspective, dated a lot of companies, and they were all a little bit better than the last, but at the end of the day, it was all about money. And don't get me wrong, you need money, right? It ranks up there with oxygen. But
I gotta say this, and it's really not a comment so much as almost a question, because it's interesting in hearing your story. You got into financial services versus the Mercedes dealership because of the money, because you saw the potential for making income, and so at that point in your life, it was like you thought, yeah, money, I'm going to take this. It's financially, this is better. I need this. But then it's interesting, because then once you got into it, it's almost as though I'm hearing that you realized that your values, that what's really truly important to MC wasn't so much the money as it was some other things in your life.
well, let me give you the point where that happened, or that change. I truly believe that one of the greatest days as an agent, and obviously one of the saddest days, is when you have to actually cover a loss, like a claim check. And I had two major experiences when I was working with that company. One of them was actually a veteran than himself. He liked to ride motorcycles. We met on a Friday. 3 days later, he had a motorcycle accident, and he left that meeting saying, "Let me think about it." And I get emotional because obviously he's a veteran brother, but I let him go with that. Let me think about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pressure anyone, but I honestly know deep in my heart that I was so afraid to lose the sale that I didn't find the real objection. Let me think about it. Wasn't the real objection, was something else. It could have been budget. It could have been circumstance. I mean, it could have been a million things, but I knew that let me think about it wasn't the real objection. Now, that was one of the ones that really hurt the most. But the other one that happened a few months later was actually a lady from church. And I will never forget it. Like, husband died, and she didn't even know that her husband has taken the step to buy a life insurance policy. And with me, and the funny thing is, he didn't buy it because he thought it was important. He bought it because it was me. He liked me enough. He thought it was like, let me help this guy. He's working hard. He's hustling. He seems honest. And giving that check, and it wasn't a big check. It was 150,000. But for a family that had nothing at that point, 150,000 sounds very, very good. And you still wonder, if I would have done the job right, um, could have been 300, could have been 500. So again, it's one of those things where that moment right there, it changes everything. Because you start looking at what you're doing beyond of your compensation. You see, most agents do a disservice when every transaction is based on the compensation that they're going to get out of it. That's a horrible individual. I don't let it happen in my organization. In this quiz, I try to take him out as soon as I can, because once you experience this, it becomes beyond that. So that's what happened. I had two major experiences that changed my life, that told me, hey, you need to stay in this industry. And yes, you need to grow. Yes, you need to work hard. Yes, you need to make more money. Absolutely. But do it for the right reasons. The money will come. Just do it for the right reasons. And that's what happened.
That's powerful. I see why that made a difference.
Yeah, he did. And the thing about that, like I was mentioning, I kissed and dated a lot of companies in the process, and there was this lady. She's gonna remain nameless, but she used to call me every day, Jason, since the day she met me. And just like probably you've been calling some people, just like I call some people, and I'm like, hey man, you need to hear about this opportunity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if it was my ego, my pride, or my how clueless I was about the circumstances I was finding myself in. Um, I kept saying no, 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 no. But she was so nice and so kind and so respectful. I never had the guts to tell her, stop calling me. Like you're annoying, you know what I mean? And back then I was in a really, really rough place. Um, and I like to post what I was doing in social media and every step of the way. I mean, I was that guy. And one day she calls me and I have just posted on social media that I was done for my day. I was in Dallas, Texas. And she said, hey, how's everything going? And I answered comfortably because I'm not in San Antonio, so she's not gonna get to me. And I told her, well, it would have been perfect to meet, except that I'm not in San Antonio. And she's like, well, that's perfect because I don't want to meet with you. My CFO does. That's where I met Tim Sparkman.
Oh,
He's one of the
the
founders
setup.
of InVida. When I met him, she didn't entrap me. I entrapped myself, right? I
Right,
just
right.
told
You
her
set yourself up for
I
that one.
just told her that I'm available and nothing is going on. And she knew my location because of social media. And I was like 15 minutes out. So anyway, I said, you know what? If I'm going to meet with somebody, I might as well be the CFO of this company. I told her, hey, in a very arrogant way, man, I go back and I'm like, Jesus, like that attitude could have taken all the things I have accomplished like this if it would have been, I mean, if Tim would have been a different man, or it would just be, I would not be talking to you. Anyway, I meet with Tim and I walk into that office with, I'm dressed in one of my best suits and I look like $1 million. Keep in mind, my account is negative 30,000. Uh, and I told him, you know what, you got 15 minutes. And Tim has a way, and you know this. He has a way of saying things like, why you here? And you guys start diving in your why. And I was very disrespectful. Never disrespected him with my words or anything like that, but my attitude. Oh my God, I should have gave more respect to the person I was speaking with, not because of his possession, but because any human being that is giving me time of their time should deserve that at least, right? So anyway, I
So,
gave him
so
some.
where do you think that came from in you? I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing you say is that you had almost an attitude of arrogance. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it came down from desperation. I mean, I was in a really bad place at that point in my life. I was allowed to lose my mortgage. I was about to lose my cars. And time was very valuable. Still is, but for the wrong reasons back then, I guess you could say. Um, and I was just trying to rip that band-aid from this lady to stop calling me because I didn't have the gut to tell her stop. So I figure if I go in with this attitude and I become this, you know what, they'll stop bugging me. And I don't have to, I didn't want to disrespect the lady because I always imagine my mom flying from Puerto Rico and whooping my tail for being disrespectful to a lady. So I didn't want that. But, I told Tim 15 minutes, that's all he got. And in less than 5 minutes, I already might change my mind that I was going to be there for as long as it took, as long as it takes. 4.5 hours later, I'm still in front of this man. And we have a fancy presentation and we got those PowerPoints and everything that we do now, which is way more than we used to do back then. He just had a marker and a whiteboard. And if you are talking to Tim Sparkman, that's where you want to be, in front of a whiteboard. Promised you. So anyway, he explained everything after the fact that he realized that I was in need, and that he made clear I needed him more than he needed me.
Can you take us into that conversation a little bit? Can you remember
What is
some of
the
the pivotal moments for you that changed
do I have
within
to
the
be
first 5 minutes?
100% explicit? Because I don't want to disrespect nobody, but the conversation was very, very harsh. You see, I come in this in a very arrogant way. Teen Sparman, he ain't no punk. He knows what he's doing. He's a man of multiple accomplishments. And we started talking, and then very rapidly he peeled the onion. He got to my heart real quick, and we got into the legacy conversation. It was very quick. He was very fast to go from the surface to the deep in my heart. My name, my last name is Aleman, needs to mean something. I have that chip on my shoulder. You see, I come from generations after generation after generation of very talented individuals that I love with all my heart, but no one ever thought about the next generation. And I'm a result of that, you know. And he always, I remember asking me, do you know the last name of the name of your great granddaddy? And I said, nope. And he's like, you know why you don't know it? And I'm like, nope. And he's like, because he didn't leave you nothing. And that hit me so fast. And the reason he hit me so fast was because he's right, and I didn't want my kids to grow up with thinking about these pro athletes and all these musicians and artists. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's all good and dandy, but I wanted them to look at me and say, my old man was thinking of me. None of them will. None of them are, So when we got to the legacy conversation, at that point, I was hooked. Keep in mind, he introduced me to the name of Philip Hodgins. He is the CEO of InVida, guys. And if you, don't know who it is, go to YouTube for Philip Hodgins' story. But anyway, sorry about that. Long story short, he introduced me to the name of Philip Hodgins. And after 4.5 hours, not having any money, I decided to stay at a hotel because it was late and it was far. I was 5.5 hours away from my home. Then I was driving, obviously, because I didn't have money to an airplane ticket. Next day, as I'm driving back home, I get a call from Philip. And I guess Tim had have a conversation with Philip about me at that point. I didn't know anyone in Danville, Virginia. I didn't know Danville, Virginia existed, to be fair. But I'm so desperate, and I was, in the direct sales still. So I would take a call from Africa if somebody called me from Africa. I don't care. Anyway, Philip Hodgins called me and they say, hey, this is Philip Hodgins. It is Emcie. And I'm like, the Philip Hodgins? That was my first word to that man. And he said, just Philip. Just Philip. I put my pants just the same way that you do. And we talking. Well, he talked for 45 minutes. He shared with me, obviously, I had a few questions because of the story I just shared. Plus, if you've been in the industry longer than a minute, you know who Philip Hodgins is, right? So anyway, Philip Hodgins was sharing all the stuff that, not only what he has done, but the vision of InVida and the mission of InVida. And it's funny because at that point, I had another business relationship. I didn't know if I could be with InVida. I was already looking because of the impression the Teen Sparman made on me, but I wasn't certain that I could. At the end of the conversation, after 43 minutes, 45 minutes, he said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, absolutely, I have one question. He's like, shoot. You see Philip, he's so honest and so real. Almost offensive how real he is. He tells me, I asked him why 45 minutes, and he's like, explain. And I said, well, I found myself in this situation because my old boss was an arrogant prick that made $50,000 more than me in the business I was, and fired me because of this difference of opinion. And it wasn't even about the different opinion, about how disrespectful he was. And I'm talking to a multi-millionaire man, and he's treating me with respect. He's giving my place on the table. And I said, why 45 minutes? I know people like you count the minutes, the hours, the seconds. And you're talking to someone for 45 minutes that didn't even know if he can be in the company. And he said this, he says, listen, all that story you saw and everything, that empire you saw being built has to be sold. Back then, I'll let him, that's a story, so maybe one day you can interview him. But it's like, it got sold over an individual that was a partner. They have ethical and moral, problems. And it took me so long to build my name that I was not willing to stay in that business anymore with that partnership. Sat down for 5 years, and I'm building this company to be the true agents company. That's what he said. And he said, and we promote live the life that you desire. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my mission, my vision, and what I want to do with this company over a shiny object. Jason, at that point, I was like, where do I sign? I didn't even know if I could or couldn't. I didn't know if I was going to get sued. I didn't know nothing, which all those things actually did happen. It's kind of funny. We talk about that later if you want to. But the thing is, I have never met a human being that was so transparent, so upfront from the beginning. So at that point, I say, sign me up, let's go to work. And that was in October 2016, and here I am.
That's a great story. So you say here you are. Let's talk a little bit about, you talked about your journey to InVida. Talk with us, share with us a little bit about your journey within InVida. Kind of, where you started, and then, where you're at now, and where you see yourself going.
Well, obviously, like I told you, I was in a different business. I was negative in that business. So I picked InVida quietly on the side, just to make a little bit of extra income, trying to keep the main business alive since I invested $30,000 that were not my money, borrow money and things like that. My mother-in-law, some other family members gave me a little bit of savings that we had. And the business was in a bad shape. I mean, I was working 21 hours a day, nonstop. And I pick InVida as a side gig, kind of. We have part-time, full-time, entrepreneur. I wasn't even those. I was like spare time or sometime. Like that was my thing with InVida. And my very first month, I submit $15,600 of business. Well, if you don't know our compensation, that's pretty much almost $8,000 in income. And keep in mind, I put 30,000 on my other business, and I was after the brick and mortar and all the things that are required to sustain the business, licenses, insurance. I was negative 1,500, and I've been hustling so hard on that one. And as a some timer with InVida, I make $8,000. Like a very
no office, no overhead, no employees.
No, working from home, trying to figure it out because I couldn't perform InVida in the other business, obviously, because of laws. And I was trying to remember, I was flying under the radar because at this point I say yes to Philip, but I didn't know if I could be in InVida legally. I mean, I was still going through that process. And so I did that and rapidly got my first bonus check. I will never forget it. And things started moving in the right direction. And, I started making a little bit of money with InVida. I used to tell people when I hired them, in a very smart way, Jason, you might laugh about this. I used to tell people, what time do you wake up? And they're like 6, 7, 8. Cool. I wake up at 4 in the morning and I run 2 miles. And they're like, wow. And that was the truth. What they didn't know was that the reason I used to run those 2 miles or walk those 2 miles, because not really was a run, it was a walk, was because I used to park my cars 2 neighborhoods down. Because the repo guy used to drive by to pick up my cars. So I used to park 2 communities down, and every morning I will go there, pick up the cars, give it to my wife, go to the day, and then in the afternoon I have to do the same. So I got in the best shape of my life during that time, walking doing all that, and and it was just a crazy thing. I mean, I go back into it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so crazy. But remember when I said at the beginning of the story, I started sharing my other relationship versus Mercedes and how I burned all the bridges. But look at this. This time I didn't burn all the bridges. I just invested 30,000 in this business that I was doing on the side. That was my main business actually. And 6 months went by in InVida, and I was having okay results, but in my mind I was like, I need to let InVida go and focus on what I was doing. I put $30,000 that I don't have, that I owe for the most part. I cannot let this die. And I remember, just like the event we just went to, there was an event back then from National Life Group, the carrier we represent. And we always talk about the event to event culture, the powerful of the event to event culture, and why we have to participate on all these events. And one thing I learned that day on that event was that you never know who's going to be speaking to you. Because sometimes you see all these men with titles and acolytes, just like today I had titles and acolytes and people want to hear from me. You never know who's really going to be speaking to you. And most of the time, the person who blows your mind is the one that you least expected. So anyway, I go to that event and I took like 5 agents with me, and I still couldn't afford a hotel. So I stayed at Mr. thusfar Ranch. I went with the intentions to quit InVida 6 months in. Um, I couldn't quit the first day, obviously, because I'm staying at his ranch with 5 people. So I had to wait to the very last day. And that day I went ready to say, hey, man, I got to focus on my business. I'm losing money, da, 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 da. And my goal was to, hey, there's 5 agents here that you can continue the journey, right? Like, I want to give you at least something. And somebody spoke that day, and he was telling his story. And Jason, outside of the fact that this man was Black and a little older than me, you could have changed his name, last name, put my name, last name, change his wife first and last name, put my wife first and last. It would have been the exact same story. And at that moment, I don't know how to cry. Like I'm a horrible crier. Like, so I don't know how to contain myself. When I get to my emotions, it's like, this is stuff. So I remember getting out of the room, listening to the story, and I went to a bathroom, and I thought that nobody could hear me. Obviously, I go into my emotions and I cry like a crazy man. Man, I wonder what people were thinking on the other side of the room. When I walk in through that door back in, everybody's like looking at the door like, it was you? And I couldn't hide it, obviously, my tears, my eyes, everything. I remember this guy's finished speaking. I went to him, gave him a hug, got on his personal space. I mean, he was very uncomfortable because he don't know who I am. I'm like all in his like we became one that day. Uh, and I remember saying thank you to him, turning around. I went direct to Tim Sparman and I said, I'm gonna earn my rightful place in this kingdom. That's what I said. Next day of that event, I quit the other business, surrendered the 30,000, the franchise, everything, went through lawsuits and all that good stuff. 45 days later, man, I made $45,000 with InVida. And I used to tell people all the time, I was like, you think I learned something magical that they don't insurance? No, it was my mindset shifted to a point where I realized that the power of what I can do if I focus on the things that I enjoy. You see, you have to understand the difference between being a self-employed, independent self-employed, being a business owner. And although I thought I was a business owner on the other one because I bought a franchise and did this and that, reality also as a self-employed man that was making no money. And InVida was giving me the opportunity to honestly become a business owner making money. And that's it. That's where I started making a name for myself in InVida. And this is where, we always say in InVida, paychecks and promotions. That's the thing. People need to make more and they need to grow. And one thing about InVida, the system, is that allows you to make more and grow. So at that point, I started getting really serious about this. And today I found myself as a senior vice president with the company on the English side, and of course, as a president of the Latino side. And here I am talking to you.
Yeah, and just for people that are watching this that may not understand some of what you just said, when you went to that event, you had 5 people with you.
Correct.
Today, give us paint a picture of what your organization looks like today. What has it been? 5 years? 6 years?
Yes, I'll be 5 years in October. Yes. We are over 1,300 agents now. That's the total that we have hired over the 5 years. And just think about that number. I mean, you divide that per year. How many families improve their circumstances just by me making that decision? It's just crazy. It's mind blowing. Now, it took me a while to understand what Philip said about living the life that you desire. You see, because in my heart, I want my 1,300 agents to just go for it. You know what I mean? Like, just burn everything, go for it. Because it changed my life, it can change yours. Believe me, for sure. But when you start realizing there's a lot of people in my organization that truly, they don't want to be insurance agents, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's not like something that when you go to high school, you're like, I can't wait to become an insurance agent. You know what I mean? I understand that. It took me a while to understand that some people that are in my organization, in fact, most of them, I would say 87% of them are part-timers. They're doing this because they need to make an extra car payment. They're trying to eliminate debt. They have an illness in the family, and they're using this to support his family member through this. And it's crazy when you start experiencing that, because those are the ones that stick with you the most. The ones that when somebody looks in your eyes and crying, tells you, thank you so much for this opportunity, because without this $350 that I made today, I would not be able to feed my family. Dude, it messes with you in a bad way. I have had arguments with my agents that were in circumstances like that. I'm like, don't you ever let your kids go to bed hungry without letting me know. And sometimes I'm grateful that they didn't, because I think I would have enabled them to continue that pattern of behavior. And at the end of the day, my job is to show them how to be truly independent at whatever levels they want to perform. And when we say live the life that you desire, that's what we mean is, hey, it's the one you desire, not the one I desire. If you're somebody that needs $500, $300, $1,000 a month, I will give you a roadmap, a working plan that gets you that you want. And you're going to have to make a decision whether that's good enough, or that's too much, or that's not enough, and based on the amount of work. And we will tweak it at that point. But it's easier said than done, and most people don't realize that when you're an independent agent, Jason, and you know this, most people expect more out of the system than out of themselves. And I don't even know how is that even possible. How can you expect more out of something than out of yourself? So, at first we used to be lollygagging. That's how you call it. I don't know. That's a tough word, but
that is. Even for me, lollygagging.
We used to be like soft and telling people, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. And when you realize the damage that you do to these people, is just you're better off telling them, hey man, you know what, this is not for you. Just buy. Just do something else. Go to Walmart, go to Target. I don't care, and no shame on that. But we cannot look at somebody in the eyes and tell them they can live the life that they desire, but justify their behavior. So it started changing with time, and there's a lot of maturity that have gone in my past 5 years. And here I am today again. I'm just grateful that I'm in the position that I'm in. I still don't understand how this happened to me. I used to be the guy that didn't want to have kids because I didn't thought I was capable of taking care of myself, let alone another human being. And somehow, some way, that should tell you how bad in math I am. I went from 0 to 4, and in charge of 1,300 lives. And as you know, in my position with InVida, more than 1,300 lives, because not only I deal with the people that are direct to me, but I deal with everybody that in every other hierarchy and every other members of the company through trainings and things like that. So I don't know if Philip is the smartest man in the world or the craziest. But I am thankful that if he's the smartest, that he's used his brain over mine. And if he's the craziest, that he's crazy enough to hire this crazy man. And here we are today, man.
Well, MC, man, I gotta tell you, I so many surprises from that story and so much good stuff. That was amazing. I appreciate you taking time to come and share today. And I feel like you've said so much. We're running out of time, but I do want to ask you one more question, and then you can wrap up with any message that you want to say. But the question that I have is, in that moment that you were listening to the man speak, and it was as though you were hearing your own story, and you went in the bathroom and you were overcome with emotion, and you came back and you embraced him. Um, Looking back on that, I know you said that your mind changed, but can you get a little deeper into that? Can you explain and share with somebody what really happened? What changed? What was the difference?
Well, I ate a piece of humble pie. That's what happened. I told you that when I joined InVida, my first interview with Tim, I was very arrogant. And through the journey of those 6 months, I probably was as arrogant as I was the very first time. I may have moved the needle a little bit, but not completely. And when I told him that I'm going to earn my rightful place in the kingdom, it connected with something that we also say, that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that you have to trust the system, you have to understand the system, and you have to use the system. And to that point, I was relying 100% on my skills and ability. And I'm confident, by the way, that I could perform in my skills and ability. But life has a way, man, to just remind you that you cannot do it alone. It gets really lonely, number one, and two, as good as I am in a lot of things, I'm really bad in others. And that's when you need these other individuals to it's like, I don't know if you've ever been on the racetrack where they put this goggles on the horses. And the reason they put the goggles is they can see what's in front of them and not get distracted with the side stuff. And I'm a person that, Les Brown said, the problem with us as humans is that we get distracted by secondary activities. In other words, things that are not really important or part of the process remove our attention to those things, and it gets you out of focus. That's why I love cameras, because you hit the screen and you automatically adjust and focus. And I guess what I'm trying to tell people is, InVida had an autofocus. Philip Hodgins had an autofocus. Tim Sparman had an autofocus. And every single time my attention was distracted, they hit that screen and automatically clear the picture, make it look pretty, and reminded me once more what was the real goal. And more so, and I think I have to say this, is it reminded me that this is not an overnight process. This is not something that you can come in today and tomorrow figure it all out. You might be better than all of us in this company. And if you're better than everybody else, it will still take you some time. It's not going to be overnight. Might get there faster, but it's not going to be overnight. And I think if you mix the fact that most people expect more out of the system than themselves, and then they have false expectations of how it's going to be the turnaround of everything they're doing, that's where most people get distracted by the secondary activities and get out of focus, remove their goggles, and they don't have anyone to remind them what the picture should look like. And when that happens and you can no longer see the goal and you can no longer be clear about the journey ahead of you and the challenges that you're going to embrace and you're going to have to face, that's when everything goes downhill. And it's one of those things. I love it. One of my best friends in the Army used to tell me, man, you're that guy that goes downhill, get on a hole and picks a shovel and start digging deeper. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, instead of putting the shovel on top and use it as a ladder to climb up, you keep digging. Good luck trying to get to China. It's not that pretty over there. And I don't understand what he meant, but what he's meant to say was, you're so close, even if you're in that hole, it's easier to look up and see the light above you than see the light below you. And somehow, some way, you grab that shovel and start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And that was me. So I'm grateful for InVida because he shine a new light to my life. They didn't tell me ever, we're gonna give you all this. I'll be very fair. They told me, hey, we're gonna create an environment where everything that you want to create is possible, but you have to create it. And that's how I've been blessed, Jason. I met some fabulous people. Just so you know, I'm gonna say something about you. Is that okay? Um, Jason,
Sure.
I met Jason in the convention in San Antonio. And Jason, the very first day, he's with his beautiful bride, and he's like, "Hey man, can you take a picture of me?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And I grabbed the camera, take a few pictures. I mean, I did a photo shoot for the guy, but he didn't know who I was, and that's fine because I'm just another dude. I'm just another guy. Struggle just like everybody else. Keep in mind, this isn't a Friday. Saturday, I'm a speaker. Sunday, they announced me becoming president, and he comes to me saying, "Hey man, I'm sorry for asking you to take my picture. I didn't know who you were." And I was like, "Listen, man, like if this title is so high that I cannot be myself with you, then I don't want it. I'd rather not have it because what makes me successful was my ability to be real. What allows me to be, hey, I'm just another human being that not too long ago was in the worst situation in my life. And if I quite remember, you were going through a process yourself during that time. And here we are 2 years later, roughly, no, a year and a half, almost 2 years. And you have overcome so much in this past, especially this past year. And you have done so much. So I guess I gotta say, save those pictures because when you become famous, I want them as I was the photographer, because the reality is that, and this is what matters at the end of the day, it's fun and jokes, but um, don't let anybody dismiss your journey, and don't ever dismiss anyone's journey. It's okay to put your foot on the mouth every now and then. It's okay to make big mistakes. It's okay, actually, it's encouraged that you do them and as early as possible. But at the end of the day, guys, and Jason, this is direct to you. All this that we're doing in InVida, if it ends with me and what I was able to do, then it's for nothing. This has to be something that has to go way beyond my reach. Yes, I want to be part of that process. Yes, I want to help you, just like I want to help anybody that is listening to this video right now. But at the end of the day, you do your part, I'll do my part. That's why we always say, you step by step, you step by step. So yeah, I appreciate allowing me to take those pictures of this future superstar, which you're already doing really good. And I guess we're gonna have to do a second interview flipping side so I can ask you questions, because I appreciate you giving me the forum, but people need to hear your story as well.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. All right, man. Hey, thanks for coming and spending some time here. I am certain that people that watch this are going to find a lot of value. Um, I know that I have. I know that this has impacted me today, and I appreciate you, MC. Thank you for taking this time, and I want to let you go, but I do want to ask you, a year from now, what's your business going to look like? You got 1,300 people today. What's your goal a year from now?
You know what? As you know, my main focus right now has been opening the InVida Latino world to every agent. When I look at the demographics of how fast the Latino community is growing, when you look at the business, first, second generation Latinos run about 60% of the growth of independent business owners. What I see is an opportunity for everybody that does not speak English to be able to work with these individuals, whether it is to provide services or sorry, you muted me by accident. Can you hear me now? So one of the things I would like to accomplish right now, Jason, is to be able to create a platform that is bulletproof, like I like to call it, where individuals from all races, all, if they speak English, Chinese, Japanese, I don't care. And it's not Chinese, it's Mandarin, I get it. The point is, I don't care who it is. It's a platform that allows them to create a business model where they can keep growing regardless of the limitations of the language barriers. I mean, America is truly the greatest country in the universe. I mean, I know it's a world, but I'm gonna go as far as the universe. And the truth is that I truly think that everybody, if we are thinking as an inclusion society instead of an exclusive society, we'll do so much better. We'll do so much more. So at the end of the day, what I see this, man, I just see every English speaking agent building an InVida Latino, helping them grow their business, and everybody get access to a little bit of taste a little bit of the success that we have done as independent agents, and remind everybody more so that it doesn't require any special talents, doesn't require any special skills, it doesn't require any special knowledge, presence, work ethic, and a good dream. Presence, work ethic, and a good dream, and the rest is history.
If somebody's watching this and they want to work with you, how do they reach you?
InVida, sorry, Emcie.Aleman at InVida FN, EMCIE.ALEMAN at InVida, INVIDA, put them on the obviously on the notes in the bottom, but more like the best way will be to reach out to you, Jason. Just so you guys know, you can call me directly. That's fine. It's all good and dandy, but you have to work with the people that work the system. Jason is being a true student of the process, and he had direct access to myself, Mildred, and other of my support teams. So if you really want to communicate with me, at the end of the day, you see that man with the gray hair right there, he thinks it's fancy because he likes crazy styles. But the truth is that you're not gonna find someone more committed than Jason. And if I can go back in time and say, man, I want to join InVida, who I want to work with, Jason would have been one of those individuals that I would put on my list. So the best way to communicate with me, Jason, will be through you. But keep in mind, you can always send me an email. Let me know that you saw me on his channel or anything like that. And I will make sure that you guys get processed the right way. And there's no ceiling in this company right now. It's exciting times. We went from a small company to competing with the top dogs in the industry overnight. So the challenges ahead of us are incredible, but the opportunities as well. So everybody has a room. So let's see what they do. But I know you're doing good things, and here we are.
Awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate it. And we may do a part 2 one of these days because you had so much good stuff and feel like there's more to get into. But thank you, MC. Appreciate your time here.
Be blessed, brother.